So, being on YouTube hiatus, it seems as if I've missed a couple of Critical Drinker reviews. The Rings of Power, The Final Insult, is next. I just did the Game of Thrones, The House of the Dragon. Very good review, sir. I was bored out of my skull throughout this whole series. And the only thing that perked me up, spoiler warning if you haven't seen it yet, the end, is that they thought that that Eminem looking chick and the rest of the girls, evil ladies, thought that Gandalf was Sauron. So it was like this huge twist. It was like, holy shit, he's Sauron? Yo! Like that really, that's probably the thumbnail for my reaction. But other than that, man, I'm just like, oh, I hope they course correct. Like, I'll give this second season a chance, but holy hell. Beautiful and boring. I've definitely dated women like that. It does not go well. Trust me. Let's get it.
You know, after the disastrous penultimate episode of Rings of Power that somehow made Galadriel even less likeable than before, teased the deaths of characters that anyone with even the most basic knowledge of Lord of the Rings knows are absolutely not dead, unmasked the not hobbits as a group of murderous psychopaths, demonstrated that Numenorians have the ability to teleport anywhere on Middle-earth within a matter of hours, gave us an origin story for Mount Doom, and whatever the fuck these things are meant to be. I figured I'd pretty much said all I had to say about this ridiculous shit show. I mean, really, at this point, how much lower could it possibly sink? How much more damage could it do to Tolkien's legacy? It would be like bulldozing the burned out remains of a gutted building that insurance inspectors couldn't quite prove was intentionally set on fire. So imagine my shock when I was happily vacationing in New York City, doing my best to avoid the plague-carrying hobos and those weird drain covers that are always belching clouds of foul-smelling steam, like there's a fucking undiscovered volcano beneath Manhattan Island, when I finally caught the season finale.
Come back to me, Galadriel.
Look at me! Good fucking god. Just when I think the show's finally hit rock bottom, there it goes, digging ever deeper into the inky darkness of creative oblivion. Well, it seems they've awoken their very own drunken Balrog with this one, and I'm here to spread fiery destruction over the Rings of Power one last time before I go back to sleep. So the story, if you can even call it that, picks up with nobody's favourite character, Galadriel, who arrives in Eregion with a badly injured not Sauron after riding there for 6 days and nights so that he can get medical treatment. Wow, he's survived a hard ride over rough terrain in all kinds of weathers with a badly infected wound for 6 days, and nobody thinks that's even slightly suspicious. Anyway, wouldn't you know it, he quickly recovers off screen within a matter of hours because the writers don't know what the fuck they're doing, and he's just in time to help Celebrimbor with a thorny little problem. You remember Celebrimbor, don't you? The master metalworker of all the elves, a man with thousands of years' experience in every possible kind of craftsmanship, who's already forgotten more about forging metal than any human could ever possibly learn. Well, keep that one in mind because it'll be important in a minute. See, his problem is that he wants to use the mithril discovered by the dwarves to make something that will reverse the decline of elvish magic in Middle-earth. But after discovering it, Durin's father shut down the mine, so they started digging again, and then Durin's father shut down the mine again, and then everyone got the huff, and Elrond was only allowed to take a small sample away with him. Fucking genius writing on this show, by the way. We definitely haven't been going in circles for the past 7 episodes. But wait a minute, I thought the point of mithril in this show was that it had to be in close proximity to the elves to reverse their decline, which is why they needed huge amounts of it. What's the point in forging it into one single object that can only ever be in one place at a time? Is it supposed to be like some kind of TV transmitter broadcasting good vibes to all of elfdom?
Don't know.
The point is there's not enough mithril to work into a usable object, but luckily not Sauron shows up just in time to suggest alloying it with other metals to increase its effectiveness. Oh my goodness, you'd think Celebrimbor of all people would have been familiar with the idea of combining metals together to produce stronger alloys, but not here of course, because the character's
I thought
only
that
as
was
smart as
strange.
the person
I
writing
was
them.
like,
So
Why didn't
anyway,
you
the
think of
Elven
that?
Smiths get to work, and wouldn't you know it, not Sauron is right there with them, because suddenly he's equally as skilled and knowledgeable as people thousands of years older than him. Wow, these elves are a trusting bunch, aren't they? I mean, this is a guy they know almost nothing about, who survived a wound that should have killed a normal man, and seems to know way more than any human should about the top secret work that's going on here. This should be a very obvious red flag that not Sauron is more than he appears to be, gentlemen. But sure, just let him into the most sensitive and important facility in your entire civilization to take part in a project on which the very survival of your species depends. Can't see this one going wrong. Anyway, now it's time to catch up with not Gandalf, who's out wandering alone in the woods when he runs into these fucking things.
Yeah.
Seriously, I've got no idea what their bullshit made-up names are supposed to be in this show, but since they remind me of Grace from Terminator Dark Fate, from now on, I'm just going to call them androgynous things. So the androgynous things turn out to be Sauron worshippers, and they believe that not Gandalf is actually Sauron returned to Middle-earth with his memories conveniently wiped, and it's up to them to remind him of who he really is, so he can get back to his job of conquering the world. And their reason for believing this, and not taking any precautions that he might be someone else, or why they even support him in the first place, don't know.
Exactly.
It doesn't really matter anyway, because
I was waiting for that to be explained.
Let's show up just in time to fight the
Like, why did they think he was him?
Throwing rocks at them. Yeah, sure, okay. But then a really confusing thing happens because they free not Gandalf from his imprisonment, but then he turns out to be really not Gandalf because he's actually one of the androgynous things in disguise, which means they must have been aware of the not hobbit's presence to have tied up one of their own mates to act as bait. So if that's the case, why didn't they just kill them right away instead of going through this elaborate time-wasting bullshit? And where did they actually put not Gandalf while all this was going on? Anyway, whatever. Androgynous things start setting everything on fire, and it looks like the not hobbits are about to get roasted alive. Finally, a plot development I can get behind. But then not Gandalf conveniently shows up anyway and blasts the androgynous things with his magical shouty voice, and then they turn into ring wraiths?
Yeah, that's what I was
how can you have ring wraiths when the rings don't actually exist yet?
Right.
Or is it just because the showrunners saw the Battle of Weathertop and decided, that looks cool, let's just do that? So anyway, the androgynous things are taken care of.
Confused by that too.
Lenny Henry took a fatal injury during the battle. I mean, I assume it happened here when he took a fucking ninja blade to the gut, but then he seems totally fine for the rest of the fight, moving and fighting like he's 100%. So your guess is as good as mine on this one.
Slowly
Either
bled
way,
to
I
death
love that he
inside.
gives absolutely zero fucks that he's about to die.
Internal
Reminds me
bleeding.
of David Carradine's performance in Future Force.
Come, in you go.
The way he delivers his lines here, he could just as easily be talking about heading down to the grocery store to pick up a 6-pack of beer.
I'm afraid I'm about to go a-wandering off-trail.
It's also extremely convenient that he wants to sit there and watch the sunrise for the last time, and the sun duly obliges by rising within mere seconds, almost like they were sitting on a soundstage and someone was standing by to move a lamp into position at just the right moments. Like, imagine how awkward this would have been if sunrise was still hours away and they all just had to sit there making awkward small talk until it finally happens. So, like, what do you use to glue your sideburns on? So anyway, he dies, and then it's revealed that not Gandalf is in fact actual Gandalf. Which is funny, because he's not due to show up in Middle-earth for a couple of thousand years yet, but whatever. Who cares about contradicting established lore? I also think it's kind of interesting, because I actually considered and then totally dismissed the possibility of this guy being Gandalf weeks ago, on the grounds that it was so fucking obvious and shamefully exploitative that even the absolute simpletons writing this show wouldn't have done it.
That's what I was
Rings of
thinking,
Power
kind of
continues
too.
to surprise me with its terrible writing. Anyway, then it's time for the plot to switch over to Numenor.
I was like, it's so obvious that...
Yari, Isildur's sister, has been commissioned to do a portrait of the dying king so they can build a lovely tomb for him when he dies, and naturally she's been left alone and unguarded in his inner chambers, because that's totally what would happen with the leader of an entire nation.
Yeah.
Then he goes a bit nuts because he's senile and confuses her with diverse queen lady and opens up a hidden doorway that leads up to the Palantir upstairs, mostly because Isildur's sister was added in at the 11th hour as a made-up character for this show, because this show has to reflect the world we live in today. The only problem is that they couldn't actually think of anything to do with her, which is why she's spent the past 7 episodes standing around looking vaguely worried about stuff. Anyway, it's time to grit our teeth and finally push this turd out. Our girl Galadriel finally realises that something's up with not Sauron when she digs up the records of the kings of the Southlands and discovers that the last one of them died 1,000 years ago. And so naturally she goes to confront not Sauron about it with no backup and
knew something
no
dark was
protection.
going to happen
and that's
then.
when he reveals his true identity.
I've had many names.
What the fuck? You're seriously telling me that nobody amongst the elves who were actually alive 1,000 years ago, including Galadriel herself, ever remembered any of this stuff? None of the Southlanders mentioned how crazy it was that a man claiming to be their king happened to return when his line supposedly ended centuries before they were born? Nobody did any digging into not Sauron's lineage before now? Seriously? Fuck off, show. I've seen soap operas that are better written than this garbage. Anyway, so not Sauron turns out to be actual Sauron, in a move that anyone with more than 2 functional brain cells could have predicted about 30 seconds of him showing up. Honestly, just like Gandalf, this was such an obvious play that I genuinely expected it to be some kind of double bluff, like he actually turns out to be a good guy all along, and fucking Doughboy here ends up being Sauron in disguise.
Yeah.
But nope, it's just as obvious as it seemed. Anyway, Sauron tries to sway Galadriel to his side because she's apparently so fucking amazing that even the most powerful entity in Middle-earth just has to have her. But she's like, nah, it'll be fine, and then they yell at each other a bit and then he goes away and leaves her. I'm not kidding, he just kind of vanishes and leaves her alive, even though it would have totally made sense to dispose of such a powerful enemy while he had the chance. But nah,
I thought that was real strange.
The person writing them, and as we've learned over the past 8 episodes, the people writing these characters are absolute simpletons. So the entire season ends with the forging of the 3 elven rings, which naturally turns out to be Galadriel's idea, because apparently no positive decisions can ever get made in this world without her direct involvement, and then actual Sauron returns to Mordor to have a good long staring contest with Mount Doom. Jesus, what a fucking nightmarish, idiotic shit show this was. Gleefully trashing and bulldozing its way through the characters and lore and world building that Tolkien spent decades lovingly putting together. The Rings of Power basically represents the nadir of Western culture, a creatively bankrupt rehash of once great ideas, covered with gaudy and pointless additions, and driven entirely by money and greed. And I think this finale is the ultimate expression of that. As much as the previous episode was dumb as fuck, it was all about action and spectacle, but the finale centered around payoffs and revelations, which only serves to expose how terrible the writing actually is. There's nothing more tragic than watching a stupid person revealing what they think is some crazy piece of misdirection, only for it to turn out exactly like everyone predicted right from the start. Everyone knew that Halbrand was going to be Sauron the moment he was introduced. Everyone knew the Southlands was going to become Mordor, and everyone knew the stranger was going to be a wizard, and that wizard was probably going to be Gandalf.
And I did think he was Gandalf.
It's all so dumb, so painfully obvious, so focused on an audience that doesn't even exist. The Lord of the Rings
was the clue
like
that
Star
he was
Wars,
Sauron?
where you can easily
I
lure
didn't
a casual audience of normies with
know
only a
what that
passive
was.
knowledge of the lore. It's a serious piece of fantasy that's practically defined by the detailed world building that underpins it, and as a result, it attracts an audience of serious fantasy enthusiasts. The kind of people that are going to get very pissed off very quickly if you try to fuck with their world, and that's exactly what this show is built on. Not only does it screw up the people and events that already existed, but the things that it tries to add for itself are so inept and ridiculous and lacking in creativity that they generate absolutely no interest. The scene where female Frodo has to say goodbye to female Sam is supposed to be some tear-jerking moment of poignant tragedy, but I can honestly say I felt absolutely nothing when I was watching it. Why? Because I don't give a shit about either of these cardboard cut-out characters or their relationship, because the script has done absolutely nothing to flesh them out. There's no nuance or layers to their personalities, they're just soulless vehicles to drive the plot forwards. And I think that criticism could basically apply to all aspects of Rings of Power. It's what would happen if The Lord of the Rings was turned into a theme park ride at Disneyland. The complex narratives and ideas and epic scope distilled down into a cheap, simplistic series of quick dopamine hits designed to bilk money out of dumb hot dog inhaling consumers before they move on in search of their next momentary thrill. As I said during a recent rant on my open bar stream, J.R.R. Tolkien earned his place in our literary and cultural heritage through hard work, creativity and passion. Amazon, on the other hand, are trying to gain that same recognition and cultural impact by buying it. Their attitude seems to be that if you make enough noise and throw enough money at something, then eventually you'll win simply by drowning out all the other voices. The Lord of the Rings is a monument to the power of one man's imagination, while Rings of Power is a monument to corporate greed and hubris. And well, I know which side I'd rather choose. Now, before I fuck off to drown my sorrows in a pint of cheap vodka, there was one little thing that I wanted to announce. See, as much as I like to bitch and moan about the shortcomings of modern media, I don't just want to be some asshole who sits on the sidelines without at least trying to do something about it. That's why I'm starting a little journey into the world of screenwriting and movie making myself, and it all begins with Rogue Elements, a short film that I'm making in collaboration with a Canadian filmmaker. We've got a script written by yours truly. We've got actors, directors, production people, and even stunt coordinators all signed up. But the last piece of the puzzle that we really need to make this work is you. See, funnily enough, making even a small film turns out to be a pretty
Wish I'd known you earlier in the year or last year.
We really do.
Asked you to join the project.
Film shot one afternoon on someone's iPhone. It's intended to be a proper production.
I asked you, could I join the project?
With all the equipment and expense that comes with it. That's why I'm asking for your help. That's right, your drinker needs you. In the description below, you'll find a link to the film's Kickstarter page, and if you're inclined to donate towards it, then you'll get all kinds of lovely rewards, from behind-the-scenes videos and production updates, to private interviews and screenings with yours truly. The more money we're able to put aside for this, the better quality and more ambitious we can make the end product. And if it all goes well, then it'll lead into bigger and better projects in future, and possibly even full-length movies further down the roads. I mean, I don't imagine I'm going to be putting Disney and Amazon out of business anytime soon, but I want to at least take a shot at producing something good, and with enough people involved, maybe we can actually start to make a difference.
Yeah.
Either way, I'll leave it up to you to make your own decision. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
This reminds me of the Ripperverse, man. It's like, you know, he created something that a lot of people didn't think was going to work. And the backing that he got was incredible. And he didn't follow what everybody's doing in the media today and, you know, brought back what, you know, people has always loved about comics. And now the drinker wants to create something being the answer to the problem. You know what I mean? I definitely back stuff like this. I like that, drinker. But check out your thingy thing here, your Kickstarter here. See what I can do. Make sure you all go and back the drinker too, if you can. And go subscribe to him. Tell him Tyrone Magnus sent you. And definitely agree with most of what you said about the Rings of Power. The Rings of Power, you know, it's just, I thought the acting was good. I did. I thought the acting was good. Special effects were great. It was shot well, directed well. It just was boring. Just was boring and not what we grew to love. That's it. Those two things destroyed it. So, you know, if it had been super interesting and engaging and still been the, you know, having the elements of the stuff we don't really love and like in media, it probably would have been passable, you know, or made you forget. You know, at least, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Post comments down below. Let me know what y'all thought. If you enjoyed my reaction, take, and thoughts on this, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share. 10 million subscribers. Go away now.